And if we continue on the way we're doing it now, and we continue to have these reports that they're overwhelmed means we use more overtime, we're going to have to make a change. And I think that's why we're here. That's why we've gotten to this point. And we're making a suggestion that a unified labor component may be the way to go for now.
So when you say unified labor component, that means that either the DPW and or the Recreation Commission has slack time.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know that that's
Yes or no?
correct
No, I was
statement.
asking Mr. Slifer that.
I understand that, Ms. Irati, but I don't feel it's appropriate now to get into whether they have a slack time here or overwhelming work there. I think the message here is that we are in a time of transition in terms of how we apply our services, how we apply our resources. You have come up tonight with some viable solutions that perhaps we can look at. And I think if we all bear in mind that this can be a fluid continuum in terms of evaluating these processes as we go forward, it will make the task that much more relevant. This is the first step in trying to address these issues. And is it going to be perfect? No, it's not going to be perfect. Are we going to learn from these experiences? Certainly we are. But I think we're all intelligent enough to learn from those experiences and adjust. So I don't feel it's incumbent upon us to write this into stone that it can't be adjusted or changed. And I think that's more on point to answering your question than trying to weigh what if this happens, what if that happens, how do you plan this, how do you plan that. This study was very comprehensive. I think all of us sitting here and hearing it did not realize the magnitude of the detail that these fine employees are involved in. And when you realize that, as we have now, Mr. Firmos and Mr. Slifer have come up with some viable recommendations of change. And now you tonight have brought to fore the potential of outsourcing some of these services. That's something we can look into. But we got to get started. We just cannot stop the process as we continue to exhaust potentials, as we continue to exhaust what other opportunities may be available. We can do that as we go. Again, we are an intelligent body. And I think we just have to keep an open mind here. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to give you a more global approach to this. Now, if you have another question, please.
Well, I have a suggestion. A couple of years ago, we undertook a study by a professional firm in our engineering department. It's kind of a productivity efficiency study. We undertook that. It came back. Things were really great in our engineering department. It was great. This year, we undertook a professional study in our buildings department. Professional study. Someone who knows what they're doing. There's actual facts in here, figures and everything. So might I suggest that we actually undertake a professional study of these two departments to see how we can best get the most bang for our buck. Then we can review that study and all its recommendations and come to a very good conclusion.
Your suggestion presupposes that the governing body as we sit here, with all of our backgrounds and professional training and experience in both the public and the private sector, cannot validly create a document that we can move forward on? Is that what you're saying?
Well, if we were all this knowledgeable, why did we do a $15,000 study?
Well, you have to remember that was under a different administration with a different majority. I happen to have a whole lot of confidence in this governing body and the people I sit on this dais with, in addition in addition to our administrative staff, who have been on board for decades. These are not novices, these people that we've hired. who
So everybody
represent us.
thinks that recreation's fine the way it is, but
I don't know that what
the
everybody thinks.
knowledgeable township committee people think differently.
I don't know what the citizenry thinks yet, and I'm sure as I have welcomed them, they will tell us.
So don't mislead the public into thinking that this is a huge savings. And don't keep criticizing us for stuff getting in the paper when it's public information. If there wasn't in the paper, you people wouldn't be here tonight.
Well, I don't happen to agree with that.
Okay.
I'm a little more sensitive to, and please, Mr. Brucey, control yourself, okay? You came in late. You didn't hear my opening remarks. I would appreciate if you would.
Mayor, I did not say one word to consideration.
Then I'll apologize to you. I thought it came from you. However, of course, Ms. Irati, you are correct. We sat in an open public meeting when we had preliminarily discussed that we were going to have this study. And it was not even started when it wound up in the weekly news. I think that's unfair to
I
our
have an
employees
ordinance.
and the department.
I have salary records, I have a chart, and it wasn't even started?
That came after the news release. It did not
Oh, I
come prior to.
Okay, so here's the letter. Dated February 9th. The news release was, this was the 6th, the 9th? We discussed this on Thursday. It was the next Thursday that it appeared in the newspaper.
I can't help Mr. Lentz' schedule of printing. That's beyond my control. The only thing I can
We
say is
discussed it
the
on
information that
Thursday
was in
night,
there
the next
was information that was discussed at the committee meeting
Right.
prior to these documents being presented to
Prior
us.
to these?
Yes, correct. Now, let's not get
I
off
don't
into a
think so.
sidebar here on when
How-
and where the public.
How would it appear in the
was going.
paper if we didn't even discuss it?
Well, somebody has a pipeline to the news media, and everybody in this room knows it's not me.
Well, everybody in this
So-
room knows that. George and I weren't in on the discussion, so it couldn't have been us.
Yeah. All of that being said, do you have any other specific questions?
No, thanks.
Mr.
Not at
Capola?
this time.
Yeah, I never get to you. First of all, I got to thank Mr. Oscar and Mr. Schleifer for the great job they do telling about what the great job these two departments do. They definitely are two separate and distinct operations. Now, before I begin, I've seen centralized and decentralizing operations the whole 35 years of my management career. And I can tell you one thing, the decentralizing never works, all right? And I'll give you a particular instance, is in Mount Olive, where they went ahead and decided to decentralize, set up a $1 million 1 million square foot facility, which is now empty after 10 years. Now the taxpayers of Mount Olive are feeling the wrath of that tax appeal. Given that, the other thing I'd like to clarify, all the folks on this diocese, none of them have as much experience about recreation as I do. When they talk about the magnitude of the details, I spent 8 years on the commission. I was chairman for 2 years, vice chairman for 1. Myself and Dr. Batista, we happened to chair Township Day each and every year. Besides chairing it, we were the ones who came up with the themes every year. And I could tell you that these folks in Parks and Recreation, we drove them nuts, making 250-year cakes and everything else to make those days really eventful.